One thing that has struck me the most, and it's a constant reminder, is this 360 leadership. I really think about it not just in my work, I think about it in my personal life as a mother, as a wife, and it's challenging me to just remove some people, remove some habits, and it's not easy. It's painful, to remove some people, to remove some habits. And I really thank you because I feel like I'm doing the right thing and it makes me feel good even if it's painful. And I can see progress, I can see changes in my life. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Modesta Mahiga 360 Leadership Podcast. That was such an incredible testimonial from Najma Juma. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about unlocking the hidden wealth in women-led businesses. And in the studio today, I have the most distinguished honor to welcome Janet Mbene. And if you stay tuned to the end, I'll tell you why it's such an honor for me to have had her on board. Janet is a distinguished senior economist, international trade and regional integration, and finance and banking expert. She has a wealth of government, cabinet ministerial, parliamentary, board, and senior leadership experience. Janet's expertise spans across the public, private, civil society, international development, and academic sectors. Ms. Mbene is the founder and director of SIA Limited, a private firm that provides both entrepreneurship and business services to MSMEs and investment services to both domestic and international investors. Janet specializes in stakeholder engagement and program design and implementation for policy, regulatory, and institutional reforms to promote inclusive economic, financial, and human capital development focused on women and youth. Janet holds a master's in agriculture economics from the University of New England in Australia and a bachelor's in economics from the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. Janet Mbene, welcome to the Modesta Mahiga 360 Leadership Podcast.
Thank you very much, Modesta. It's a pleasure being here.
Oh, it's amazing to have you here. Janet, you're an economist who has worn so many hats. You've worked in the private sector as a banker, international nonprofits across Africa, and you served your people and country as a parliamentarian, as well as in cabinet ministerial positions. Throughout your career, including in your current capacity as a business, trade, and investment consultant, you've always made the case for unlocking national and global wealth through women and youth economic inclusion. What is your story? Where does this passion stem from? You've always stood for this.
Well, Modesta, actually, the passion comes from a belief and conviction of the capacity and ability of women to manage, to care, and to make a difference in the livelihoods of their families, the communities, and even nations. I saw this firsthand in my own mother, who was a working class woman. She did so many things. She was multitasking all the time. As far as I can remember, my mother was working, my mother was gardening, my mother was raising some small livestock around the place, my mother was helping neighbors, my mother was all over the place. So whenever someone said anything negative about women not being able to do what and what, I go, how come my mother can do this? How come my aunties are doing this? How come this and this and this are doing this? So I realized very early on in my life that, you know what? A woman can do much more than even some of the men. So to me, that was a passion. But moreover, she used to take us on holidays. She used to take us with her to the villages to train women on literacy, on nutrition, on baby care, home care, gardening, all kinds of things that would help women to improve the health of their families, but also to adhere to some of the health norms that government was promoting. So to me, that was also an evidence that women can make a big difference when they rally around policies or practices that are supposed to be improving the livelihoods of people. So that is something that really helped me to understand that there is a role for women.
And a huge one at that. I just grabbing onto what you shared about when you go on holiday, when you went on holidays to the villages, and how targeting women, right, about health issues and economic issues, but also really literacy and helping them in the areas to align with government policy, that then ensured that got to husbands, that got to children, that got to other members of society. Like, this is the demographic to speak to, right?
Right.
If you want to then effect meaningful change in society.
Absolutely.
That reminds me of a book I read, Switch: How to Change Things When Change is Hard. There was this example of this. I don't know. I may not remember his name well. Maybe it was Jerry Sterling. I'm not sure, but he worked for, maybe it was Save the Children. I'm trying to remember. But he went to Vietnam, and him being from the U.S. And at that time, the U.S. weren't really not popular. This is, I think, in the 90s, but still. So they gave him a 6-month visa, and he had to address the issue of malnutrition in the villages,
Mm-mm,
right?
mm,
6 months to show, right, the outcomes, so that he could have his visa renewed.
mm.
And so what he did is he worked with women
Yeah.
who could go into the villages to map out the villages where children were thriving, despite the fact that it's village life, and it's maybe they expected the children not to thrive.
Mm,
And when they found out that their mothers were feeding them little shrimp from the rice paddies, as well as sweet potatoes, or roots, things that were not seen to be maybe the better foods,
mm,
but actually were packed with nutrients,
mm,
they then trained these women to go to speak to the other women, where children were malnourished,
mm,
because they were mostly eating starchy foods.
mhm.
So he was able to come back with results within 6 months, because he worked with the women in the villages,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and they got to speak to each other, and they trained each other.
Mhm, mhm.
That is so good. So yeah, it's great to hear this, that both at home and also you saw how your mom being strategic about speaking to women has made a difference to other women. So I get it now. I get
Mhm.
where your passion comes from.
Yeah.
Now I want to go into really unlocking the hidden wealth in women and women-led businesses,
Mm,
because much has been done globally to level the playing field for gender equality. And I'm thinking back since 1995, United Nations First World Conference of Women in Beijing, and
mm,
we know that Tanzania played a great role in that one as well.
mm,
And also, we still see continued efforts to promote women's financial inclusion.
mm.
And globally, and starting with Africa, but also globally, women are the most entrepreneurial demographic.
Yes.
So my question is, with all those efforts made at the global stage, with national implementation, why are women still at the bottom of the economic pyramid?
Mm. Yeah, that's a very good question, quite pertinent, but there are answers for it. I would think it starts with the history around entrepreneurship as far as women are concerned, and that speaks to the whole world. It's not just Africa. It's not just Asia. It's not just Latin America. Even in the so-called industrialized world, there's still issues of stereotyping women. There were things that women could not be seen to be doing. They could not even think of doing. For instance, women who they're still trailing men behind in terms of entrepreneurship, because first of all, the types of businesses or entrepreneurship enterprise that women went into, these were the ones that were done around the home. These were the ones that were as a result of a spouse dying or a father bequeathing something to the daughter, and who needed to continue doing that. But these were not businesses that women sat down and designed to do and venture into. So they're almost like incidental. They're almost like things that you did to make an extra buck to live by. So you can imagine the difference when a woman is just doing something to augment the family income or the food stuffs that they need in the home, as opposed to a man who goes in full scale into a business venture with the investments and everything that will go with it. So that in itself put women behind. But then again, there were also issues of the scale with the rates with which women went into business, but also the scale. Women would go for the smaller scale businesses, micro businesses, because either they were not equipped to do big businesses, or they were not confident enough to do that, or they were more risk averse. It was like, I may not go there. In case I lose, I will lose small. If I venture big, I might lose a lot. But men, on the other hand, go big, and if they lose, of course, they lose a lot. But if they succeed, they succeed very much. So there are all these issues, but also we should not forget the issues of culture. I mean, when were women allowed to even vote? That is in the 20th century, I think, 19th or 20th century. So still, women could not do a lot of the things that men were doing then. So women trailed behind, and also to this day, women are trailing behind, even though the world has opened up to women entrepreneurship. But the world has opened up to women entrepreneurship. But are the facilities equally distributed to both men and women entrepreneurs? No, sir. Studies have shown that even banks, the financial institutions, they are not ready to provide large finances to women. It will take a lot for them to be convinced to allow a woman to have those resources. If you come to issues of inputs, women do not get as much inputs as men do, even on a lease finance basis. So you find that there's no equal playing field per se. There's a lot of lip, there's a lot of things that are being said. There's a lot of policies that are down there, but when you come to actual implementation, it's not that easy for women because of the stereotyping, because of the culture, and also because of barriers. There are barriers that have been put, whether they are physical or actual or subtle. With women to do business outside the home, like venture out, go travel, go to China, go to Turkey, go to America, go to Europe to get stuff and bring back, or meet with foreigners to discuss ventures and all, you would need to go through somebody. If it's not your father, it's your husband or relatives. A man will get up, put stuff in his suitcase, and tell the wife, I'm leaving tomorrow, I'm going to China, I'm going to meet so and so. And the wife will go, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. But for a woman, you have to negotiate that. For you to get out and travel all the way to China, you need a whole month of really sucking up for someone to really allow you to go and to understand that you need to go. So there are all these kinds of things that are there that have made women lag behind. Notwithstanding that, there are women who have advanced a lot. We have billionaires, but these are very few compared to the majority of the numbers of women that are in the world. So there have been these issues that have made women lag behind. Even statistics would show you that there are men who invest in micro enterprises or in entrepreneurship. They are more than women at any category. even in the highest levels of businesses, there are still fewer women than
mm.
men. So this speaks
Mm.
to what needs to be done to really bring up women up to speed.
This looks like a long-standing, it is an engendered,
Mm,
systematic, and a complex issues from many
mm-hmm,
fronts. Culturalization,
mm,
socialization, just even the risk of averseness of
mm,
women, maybe because they're giving, it's either the kids eat, and I know we're not speaking of, we're not representative of everyone, so maybe some of the women that listen in here, they're like, that's not my reality. But you may not be the average person, the fact that you're listening to
mm,
this
mm,
podcast, so you're not the average. I am not, you would certainly are not,
mm,
Mbene, but you're saying this is why we're not seeing widespread at global scale or even national scale
mm.
development in many of our countries. So the complexes, the challenges are many and they're complex.
Yeah.
But I wonder then, and I know you were just about to address this, but I
Mm,
wonder if you can narrow down key stakeholders that can come to play, maybe starting with the woman,
mm,
and some reforms each of these stakeholders can take to facilitate real progress for women
mm.
MSMEs.
Yeah. I would start with education. I
Hmm.
would really start with education, both formal, business, as well as skills levels education. I
Hmm.
know that the ordinary schools, the tertiary education, the universities, and all that, girls and women attend very well. But when it comes to
Hmm.
entrepreneurship, when it comes to business, when it comes to investments, these are
Hmm.
areas that women need to be more educated in. And then we need to have larger numbers of women into employment. The workforce is still, I mean, you're talking of over 51% of women population in the world, but look at how many of these are in the workforce, the formal workforce, despite their education. So there is an issue for getting more women employed, and this speaks to the policies themselves. This speaks to the affirmative actions that need to be placed. This speaks to the awareness creation of opportunities out there that target women, and this should be deliberate. I think of the examples where affirmative action was taken in 1995 after Beijing, saw how many women were sensitized into now taking up positions, into now engaging in politics, engaging in all governments took action, affirmative action to ensure that women are represented everywhere. Now, as far as business is concerned, the same kind of affirmative action needs to be taken. You can talk about, oh, women are allowed, women can do this, but can they really do it? When a man and a woman goes to apply for a job, same qualification, same everything, I can assure you the preference will be for the man in
Mm.
most cases.
Unless policy says, look, unless there's affirmative action and policy says we would prefer, the
Hmm.
woman, because there's some international organizations that say that,
I know.
because we're looking to the playing field. But otherwise, yes,
I worked for
that
the
has been.
UN, and that was a policy. If two candidates
Mm.
come in, a woman, a man, they would
Mm.
take the woman because of that preference. That was
Mm.
a matter of policy. Then there's
Mhm.
also the issue of the challenges that women face in growth because of the dual responsibilities as a family,
Mm.
as carers, as well as workers, as nurturers of children, and all that.
Mm.
Now that's also
Mm.
an area that government needs to work on. Policies have to be
Mm.
put in place to make sure that
Mm.
you do not trade off women's participation in the labor force, in entrepreneurship, just because they're having babies, or they're taking care of children, or they are taking care of families, or they are taking care of the sick, extended families, and all
mm,
that. So
mm,
these are also
mm,
things that need to be in policies, and
mm,
meaning that even when a woman is taking care of the baby, and she needs to work, then there should be a conducive environment at the workplace that will cater for the babies while the mother is working. That will create
mm,
an opportunity for women to join the labor force, knowing that they will not have to worry about their children. So these are also things that
mm.
have to be in policies to ensure that children are taken care of while the mother is working. My other issue is, why are women not taking up these opportunities? First of all, like I said before, women are less confident to compete shoulder to shoulder with men because of the stereotyping. Women have accepted lower wages even when they know they deserve more. It was like, at least I've got a job. That should not be the way to do. So there are so many things that are causing women not to do to engage at an equal footing as men. So policies is important, education is important, but even in business, anyone who is providing services should ensure that women receive services that will put them at par with men in business and in other entrepreneurship enterprises.
That is so good. There's so much to unpack from this.
Mm,
Jack, one of the things that you just mentioned, and you spoke about it in the employment arena, but equally so important is social safety nets.
yeah.
Whether I have children, I have to take time off, or I need to take care of a relative, or there's even less support. We have less programs created for women entrepreneurs, in terms of health insurance, in terms of what kind of safety nets will allow an entrepreneur to go on maternity leave, right? I am an entrepreneur, I go on maternity leave, that's it. Unless I have I have a machinery, right? So it does start with policy, and it has to be, um, and I think what you're saying is, unless, and one of my clients really speaks about feminist policies. Unless you have policies that actually consider the woman, not just enacting policy and say anybody can be eligible. Well, the situation of the woman is that she's not going to be eligible. So if you really truly care about unlocking this hidden wealth in women led MSMEs, which make up the largest, especially in emerging markets, which makes up the largest business group, in the informal sector, it's then to create the kind of policies and the kind of environment that attracts them to engage in business, attracts them to formalize because they see what's in it for them. Otherwise, truly, I feel like the message going out to them is, if that's what you want to do, you're on your own. And true, you have to count the cost. You know the cost. There's a great cost to you, your livelihood, and you're counting that cost and choosing to go into entrepreneurship. It makes it all that much riskier than just market conditions. And this is really real when we're talking about, okay, so we've signed on the conventions, we've ratified some of these agreements, but what does that actually look like? It looks like imagining the realities of being a woman entrepreneur, and the cost of going into entrepreneurship. Forget about employment, which itself is a cultural and societal maybe sometimes risk, but entrepreneurship, you're risking it all with no safety net, and that has to be addressed. And I wanted us to really press in on the fact that this isn't even just about helping more women participate in business. This is literally the hidden potential, the game changer, maybe the greatest leverage, especially for developing nations, emerging markets, is greater women's participation in mainstream business. Yes, we have more women entrepreneurs, but when you look at the policy and the environment, the business
Mm.
environment, it dissuades them from greater participation.
Absolutely.
But should there be policies and budgets and
Yeah.
programs uh, enacted to promote them, you will see a swift turnaround in
Mm.
GDP, in competitiveness for many economies.
Actually, Modesta, there are studies
So,
that have shown when you include women in the mainstream economy, your GDP rises by 27%.
that's
That's
significant.
significant.
That's a third.
Of course, it differs in different nations or levels of industrialization. But anyway,
Mm,
in
mm,
whatever the case,
mm, mm,
if you increase
mm,
the participation of women in economic development in the mainstream economy as entrepreneurs,
mm,
and you provide for their
mm,
stability, you provide for their social
mm,
networks, you will find that
mm.
the GDP rises by far. So it is good
So,
sense to include women
mm,
in any situation, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's labor, whether it's care, whether wherever you include women, you can be sure
mm,
GDP will rise. So unleashing the potential of women, which is still latent to
mm,
the large extent,
mm,
is the best way
mm,
that any nation can do. And it's not difficult.
mm,
Studies have been done, research is there, figures are there. It's just a question of
mm,
political will to actually put in place the policies that will ensure that women's potential is brought out. Women are assured of not losing on the family front, or on the care of their families, and then everybody will be so comfortable. The stability that will be brought about by the policies will make sure that so many women will want to engage in business, in entrepreneurship, because there's so much potential there for business. And also for those who, I mean, there are women who left their work just so that they can take care of their families. Imagine how much loss is there. These are educated women, skilled, but they needed to stay home because they had to be sure that their families was taken care of. Imagine there was a situation where the families could be taken care of. The social networks are there. The pension schemes are working. The medical insurance schemes are there. The workers'
mm,
compensation is taken care of. These women will work without any
mm.
any any problem.
And when you do the calculations, the trade offs make sense. Like what you're going to invest in building the safety net, in building pro women policies and programs is going to is far less than the benefits you would accrue from actually having women fully engage in entrepreneurship and employment.
Absolutely.
Janet, we're together developing this Daraja tool to promote inclusive trade and investment opportunities for women and youth, and you're one of the key drivers of this initiative.
Mm,
What impact do you think Daraja tool will have on women and youth in terms of access to
yeah.
information, building their capacity, their business compliance, and partnership opportunities, especially in this era of qualifying for funding
Mm.
and financing?
Oh, Daraja too will definitely have a big impact because there are so many gaps uh, in the information that is out there for entrepreneurs who want to trade with each other. Someone wanting to trade from this continent to another, they need to know what is out there, who they can trade with out there, what kind of conditions are needed, and how much they need to prepare. Now, all that is information that Daraja tool can provide through doing its research and making this information ready in a form that is accessible to both parties. We can Daraja tool can broker the support for information that is needed on either side for women entrepreneurs on either side to access easily on the digital platforms. But we can Daraja can also be a trainer of these parties on the use of these facilities. Uh,
Mm,
you may
mm,
think,
mm,
or you may say maybe the more developed countries are more digitally or technically savvy, but in some of the other
mm,
areas they are not. A lot of the women entrepreneurs require training in
mm,
technology, use of technology, use of digital instruments, and all that. So that could be
mm,
one way that Daraja 2 supports. But also the issue of facilitating virtual meetings between entrepreneurs who have been identified as matching, wanting to speak to each other, wanting to exchange information, wanting to share and find out the potential for them to engage. We could also be the ones providing that kind of support. But even where physical meetings are required, let's say an entrepreneur has managed to travel to another country, or even within countries, when entrepreneurs want to meet each other, they did not know of each other. We broker the meetings and they meet and they discuss and they agree on way forward as far as their mutual ventures are concerned. But I also see an opportunity for research, sectoral research. There's a lot of information out there, but it's not in one place, and it's not known to everybody. So it would be an opportunity for Daraja to look for this information and package it in a way that can now be used by those that require it. So I see Daraja 2 as something that will really be a focal point in providing for all these facilities so that business and trade can take place between entrepreneurs in one place and in another. So that, but also Daraja tool could also provide business advisory services whenever they are needed.
mm,
Because
mm,
fortunately for us, we know the markets on both ends. So it will be easy
mm.
for someone in Africa who wants to know something in America and vice versa to provide them with that information and provide them with the advice on how best to go about it. So this is how I look at it.
This is so exciting for me because again we're talking about using actually it's Sarah Ezra Moshi,
Ah, yes,
Sarah Terry.
yes,
Yeah, let me just get it right. Sarah Ezra Terry, because I think that's the name that she goes
yes,
by.
yes.
And she's one of my clients, and she was talking about pro feminist policies, and I found that very interesting in her profile. So I was reading through, and what she's really just saying is, listen, if you can put yourself in their shoes, right?
Mm,
And what would grant access and greater participation for them? It's not just saying we have a policy, here it is. It's not about equality, it's about equity.
right.
What would help individual demographic,
Mm,
right? And because they have very specific
mm,
challenges and they're very specific opportunities and very specific situations to be able to participate, so that truly we can leverage their presence for greater output and outcomes, but also give them a fighting chance. And I feel like Daraja Tool is one of these things that is putting ourselves in women and youth's shoes. We're
yes.
saying,
Mm,
how do they think? How do they interact? What would make them comfortable? It's not walking into a government office. It's not trying to get through every single website from every place that they would like to get information from, whether it be government, their own, or another country. What if just using mobile, because there's such great penetration. By 2025, I think it'll be
Mm.
51% mobile penetration on the African
Huge,
continent, for
huge,
instance,
huge,
right?
huge, huge.
How That's so significant.
Mm.
How about you get this, what, 600, 700 million people,
Mm.
right? The majority of the continent, and over half is women, right? And we're the greatest entrepreneurial demographic. If you can get access to information, you can get access to skills, right? They can be trained, like you said, get access to the criteria for business registration, for compliance if they want to trade with other countries, understand what are the partnership opportunities, what does it take to be eligible, and to be able to get this support in one place, on this one app, on this one platform. It's going to be a game changer, total game changer, for women and youth, because they do use mobile phones. They do get access to mobile phones. They can get on an app, and they can follow, information that is in their local language, get help in their local language. I truly think, Daraja tool is going to go far. And by the way, for the listeners who are not Swahili speakers, Daraja means bridge in Swahili. So I'm excited too, Mama Ben. I'm excited too about this. Janet, we've spoken about what governments can do, what policymakers can do, what partners in the business environment, whether it's funding, financing, those across value chains in the market, can do to help unlock the hidden wealth in women led businesses and MSMEs in particular. But I want to now ask what you would recommend the women themselves to do individually and collectively to unlock their wealth.
Yeah, this is key. This is key because no matter how many policies are set out there, how many regulations are there, if women themselves are not ready to participate, if they're not ready to take advantage of these, if they're not ready to really like do some soul searching in themselves and be really hungry to acquire these opportunities, then there'll be no point in doing all this. So
Mm,
actually, it's very, very important at this point in time for women not to sit back and wait for things to be done for them.
mm,
So far, where we are has been a result of a lot of agitation, a lot of advocacy, a lot of
mm,
fighting for these rights.
mm, mm, mm,
So women should not think because we've come this far, it means we have arrived. We have
mm,
not arrived. It is at this point in time that we know where we need to go.
mm.
And where we need to go, it will take the policies, but it will also take our own initiative to get up and go.
But what does that look like in practice? What is it that individually and collectively we can do?
We must invest in our self-development.
Okay.
We must invest in things that will make us competitive.
Mm-hmm.
We must invest in areas that we feel if we are able to do those things, it will put us at a better advantage to do business in a better way and more successfully.
Mm-hmm.
We must collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the time for women to start moving individually. There will be
Mm-hmm.
areas that we will need to collaborate. I have something here. There's someone
Mm-hmm.
else who has the same kind of thing. We need to execute a huge order to China.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely we need to collaborate. If I'm producing soya, someone else in Zambia is producing soya, someone else in Zimbabwe is producing soya, and China needs tons and tons and tons of soya. There's no way we're going to fulfill that market if we do not collaborate. But we
Mm-hmm.
must also collaborate on sharing of knowledge, sharing of
Mm-hmm.
skills, sharing of
Mm-hmm.
strategies.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the time to be selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Men do that even though they don't advocate, they don't advertise it. I have seen it in tendering processes.
Mm-hmm.
A tender is announced, an international tender is announced, men collaborate. Someone in the US, someone in Africa, someone in Asia. The firms bid, and they go in as a consortium to bid for a huge tender. And because of the complementarities in their skill sets, in their capacities as industry capacities, they win the tender. And then they have a team that works on the tender. Women must also learn to do that. So we have engineers, we have scientists, we have medical doctors, we have pharmaceutical directors, and even owners. We must come together and do this. Otherwise, without collaborating, we will never go far. So that's another area that I want us as women to look at and really, really commit to. Another thing is join national, regional, and global associations. These are the platforms that will provide us with opportunities. Usually, when you go in as an association, first of all, there are special privileges that you get as an association. The opportunities that you will get through financiers, through educators, through whatever for your members. Now, as women entrepreneurs, we must look for these opportunities. So invest, because you need to subscribe to this. You need to pay your memberships into these associations. So this is not the time to be stingy and start saying, so much money, so much money. It's an investment. So this is something women must look at. First of all, learn where are these associations. There's an African Business Council, there are East African Business Councils, there are American Business Councils, there are chambers of commerce everywhere, there are chambers of commerce for women, there are all kinds of associations. Some of them are sectoral, some of them are just business in general. We must be members of these associations all over the world. Be members of professional associations. If you're a professional entity, be members of those associations. Another area is understand the legal and policy frameworks that govern businesses, the whole world, not just in your own country alone, everywhere. As long as it's an area that you target to be doing business with, make sure you learn about what is prevailing in that area, in that country, so that when you want to deal with them, you know exactly what to do and what not to do. But the most important thing also is to be brave, to be daring. This is the time not to be shy anymore. Innovate and just be very, very, very proactive. Think big. Women have been used to be doing small things, medium scale, and be afraid of going out. But this is not the time to be afraid. Opportunities are there. Latch onto them and make sure that you participate. You must be present. You must take part to win. If you sit back and not participate, you will never win. But if you take part, you will win. And even if you lose, you would have learned a lot from it. So these are things that women themselves should be now doing for themselves. It's not a question of waiting for any policies. The policies are in place, but what are you doing about them? You must now take advantage. And through collaboration, women can go far. Through self-development, women can go far. So those are things that I really wanted for women to. Women should not sit back anymore. Women must venture out there, be daring. We had a meeting. We had a conference recently on women in trade. A Tanzanian woman is selling sisal to North Africa. Is talking of going to, is it Germany, some European country? And I asked her, what are they using those sisal things for? He says they're for insulation. I go,
Wow.
what? And she told me there's no competition, and that I
Wow.
cannot even meet the demand.
Wow.
I go, how did you even learn about this?
Wow.
Can you believe it? So
Right?
women must also choose areas to go that have less competition, for starters,
Yeah.
so that you establish yourself, you start making the money. By the time competition comes, you're already way ahead and you're looking for
This
another
is
opportunity. I was so impressed.
absolutely. And this is what you're saying. Be a risk taker, right?
Absolutely.
Get in the know, get to see the opportunities, but also potentially, some gaps that you can fill. Not everything has to already have been done and established.
And this woman, she's not even growing the size of herself.
Mm.
She's now
Mm.
supporting my outgrowers, women size outgrowers. So they are selling to her. So she's already doing a lot of good service for them, because these women have small farms, and they did not know where to sell. Now they have a ready market through her, and she's adding value to them. She doesn't take the size as it is. She processes it into this insulating material, and then takes it
Mhm.
by the baleful to these countries that she's exporting to. She's already making a lot of money, because she's ready. Those people, when they receive it, it's just ready to put in the houses. They don't need to do anything
So,
else to it. It's already. We saw the site.
uh,
She showed videos, and I go, wow, exactly the materials you guys use in your homes in America.
yeah.
But this is
This is what
natural.
I'm hearing.
This is natural now, because of the health issues and the environmental issues.
Yeah, yeah,
Can you believe it? So there are a lot of opportunities out there.
yeah. I
Yeah,
can. I've heard of kinds of wonders. I've heard of perfume and oil and clothing and things made out of chocolate. So
yeah, yeah.
I've heard all kinds of things and coffee. But listen to this. This is what I'm hearing. Just summarizing this section on what women can do themselves to unlock their wealth. You said think big. I think it's think big, talk big, act big.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely.
The other thing that we don't do much is talk about what we do.
Mm,
We don't show ourselves out there. So like you go to these meetings, you hear of these amazing women, let's say in your country, Tanzania, right? You hear
mm-mm.
of all these amazing women and what they're doing. You're like, where have you been? Who are you? Like, we're doing things of this scale. And I
Imagine.
think not just to put yourself out there as an entrepreneur sometimes, because some people are private and everything, but it's these kinds of things that stir motivation, that spark innovation. I may not want to copy your thing, but you just gave me an idea to look at what else I can do in my
Mm-hmm.
context.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, men may get more finances and funding and partnership opportunities simply because they're visible.
Oh yeah, they are. They are.
Well, they first of all show up and they network. They talk about what they do. They brag about what they do.
Oh,
They may
they
have
do. They
less
do that very much. Yeah.
less finesse, and I'm not saying always so, but it could even be that. But the fact that there's that confidence, like I own this thing, I'm going
Mm,
to own what I do. I'm going
mm,
to be proud of it, talk about it, and I'm
mm.
going to promote it. And I
Yeah.
think that's something, even that in itself can start getting you the kind of visibility and the
Yeah.
kind of conversations that can even make you go back and want to improve even more. I
Absolutely.
think sometimes we want to wait until something is fully done because we don't
Yeah.
want to make mistakes and take risks. And
Mm.
men are like, nah, basically got this. I have a I have a 9-year-old daughter, and she will do one thing one day. The one time she tries, she's like, "Mom, I'm basically a pro." I'm like, "How are you a pro?" She went ice skating with a friend. It was a 1 hour session at this ice skating rink. She goes, "Mom, I did this thing like within minute. I'm basically a pro now. Like I can go and I don't need help." I'm like, this is a different attitude. We need obviously not pretend you're a pro after one try, but just if you don't believe in your business, if you don't believe that you can make a difference, or even collectively, if you don't believe in why should anybody else?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So listen, I'm excited about what you're sharing. I love everything you said from speaking from historically where the disadvantages stem from, talking about the stakeholders that could engage to unlock women's hidden wealth in women MSMEs, but also women themselves. Now you are many things, as we said at the beginning. But you know, through CL Limited, you currently do serve businesses and investors. So, what can the members of the 360 leadership community reach out to you for?
Yeah, I think that the best thing that I can talk about right now is mentoring. I know a lot of women entrepreneurs who start businesses, like they're not very confident about the businesses that they have. They're not too sure of where it's gonna go. But
Mm,
sometimes all they need is just some, um, just something to boost their morale, to show them that you know what, you're on the right track, and this is what you need to do better. Or even talking to them and finding out what they do, they get so excited. But I also provide business advisory
mm-hmm,
for whatever business that one is doing. I like
mm-hmm,
to talk to them about the business. They explain to me what they are doing. I ask them a few questions, and if I feel that they need to be advised on some things, then I go out there and advise them. But I'm known to
mm,
have gone to someone's firm and sat there for a number of days and watch what was going on, so that in the end I would advise them, you know what, I see this, I saw this, and I think you need to strengthen here, and then you need to do this and that. But
mm,
I also am, I like to share my experiences.
mm,
I feel there's so much that I can share, because usually when I talk to
mm,
people, I myself do not realize that I have so much experience until someone says, "Oh my goodness, you've done so much, you know so much." So I've come to include that in my resume, so to speak. Like, if you want me to share my experiences with you, and see in your own case what you will apply, then that is okay. But I also,
mm. That is so.
yeah. So these are the three main things that I can do with people who need my support. But I also
Mm,
train. I do train on business management, issues of
mm,
keeping books of accounts, simple
mm,
business planning exercises,
mm,
assessment
mm,
of profit and loss, balance
mm,
sheet, trying to plan for your business and see how much you have made or whether it's doing well, and looking at cash
mm,
flows, how to plan for your cash flows. These are the kinds of financial statements overall. I provide that kind of service as well, because that's an area where a lot
so
of
good.
the small businesses, especially women managed, they're not really confident about preparing their books, and that's critical. No financier will come to you if you don't have your records. But those also
Mm,
help you yourself to understand your business. Is it doing well? Is it sickly? Where do you need to improve, and what do you need to do? So I help them with that
mm.
as well.
So good. So good. And of course, you know, development, investor readiness and also, you know, brokering conversations and deals as well. So where do they find you? Do they find you on LinkedIn, Janet and Mbene on LinkedIn, or is there an email as well that they can reach out to you?
Yes, they can. Well, they can reach me on my email, maorchid@gmail.com. They can find me on my mobile phone. For the case of Tanzania, is +255 755 067594. They can also find me on my social media handlers. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram as Janet Mbene. Yeah.
Good. Oh, Janet, this has been phenomenal. And I told people that, listen, if you stay till the end, I'll tell you why this was just amazing for me to have this podcast guest on, because this podcast guest, ladies and gentlemen, drum roll, please, is my mother. My name is Zebediah Mbene. Is my mother. I am her fourth of five children, and oh, what an honor it has been to have been born to this woman. Everything I am, the way I think, my heart toward making a difference, and never being satisfied with the status quo, wondering what else can be done, wondering, how things can be improved, and then sticking my neck out, putting my hand up and saying, wait, I'll do something about it. Even if sometimes, the shoes are too big for me, I would still go at it. I got this from my mother, Janet Zebedayo Mbene. So Mom, this was amazing to have you on. I know there's so much else we could talk about, but yeah, I'm so glad to have had you here. And
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. It was an opportunity and an honor.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. And also happy that we work together. You were talking about collaboration. My mother through SIA Limited, myself through Modesta Mahiga LLC, we actually collaborate in engagements as well. U.S. Africa business, trade, and investment engagements. So she walks the talk. This is something that we're currently doing. And the Raja tool, as we mentioned before, is something that we're co-creating and going to take out to the world. So, Mama Janet Zebedayo Mbene, thank you so much for joining me at the Modesta Mahiga 360 podcast.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's so amazing to have you on the Modesta Mahiga 360 Leadership podcast. If you're thinking, I need to work on my business, maybe you're an entrepreneur, a woman entrepreneur, or a man for that matter, and you're thinking, I need help. I need help to think through what I'm doing, how to be strategically position, how to leverage my competitiveness or the competitiveness of what I have to offer. Reach out to us on operations@modestamahiga.com. Janet Mbene gave you her details. She's Janet Mbene on all her social media handles. She shared her email and number, which we'll also put in the description of this episode. Reach out to her as well, especially if you're in Tanzania. You can possibly meet up with her on what she can do for you and your business to help it grow and scale. So until the next episode, have a wonderful one and take advantage of episode guests. Reach out to them and grow in your leadership effectiveness and as well as your organizations. And in this case, businesses. Bye for now.